UFC 274 tomorrow. We're just a day away. Welcome back, Sicko Sports Podcast. I am hype, baby. UFC 274 takes place tomorrow. And for all you yuppies, everybody that I keep seeing up there on Twitter and everywhere, this is kind of a crappy pay-per-view. This is more of a fight night feel. This isn't a big-time pay-per-view. What are you talking about? You got 2 championship fights on this card, and you have Tony Ferguson, Michael Chandler. How is this not a big-time pay-per-view? Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje for the lightweight championship. I don't know how that's a fight night fight. That is a pay-per-view fight. This is a big-time card, big-time pay-per-view. If you're a fan of MMA, if you claim to be a fan of the UFC and you're not hyped for this pay-per-view event, you are crazy. You are a phony fan. This pay-per-view has it. I can't wait. Obviously, we're going to get into it. We're going to take a deep dive into this card. Like I said, you cannot have Rose Namajunas against Carla Esparza. Rose, how much has she grown? How much better is she from the last time that she lost to Carla Esparza in the tough finale that crowned Carla Esparza the first ever 115-pound women's champion? First time ever. How much has Rose grown? Or is Carla just that much of a nightmare matchup? Is her wrestling prowess and that kind of background that she has, is that just the kryptonite of Rose Namajunas? We will find that out. The 115-pound women's championship is on the line. Along with that, like I said, the main event, Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje. I don't know how you're not excited for that fight. Charles Oliveira presents so many different ways to win and ways to finish, and Justin Gaethje has that real knockout power. I will dive into all of that. And then, of course, like I mentioned, Al Kukui, Tony Ferguson on Mexican Independence Day. On Mexican Independence Weekend, you got Tony Tony Ferguson against the All-American Michael Chandler. How are you not excited for that fight? That fight could be a lot of things. We don't know what's going to happen to these two. They're both on losing streaks. We don't know what's going to happen to the one that loses this fight, but we know one thing. We know a couple things, actually. We know that there's going to be blood. There's going to be some shots landed. There's going to be damage in this fight. That's what makes both of those guys so exciting to watch, and that's why I can't wait for that fight to take place. And then you have some OGs on the rest of that card. Let's dive into it. Let's start from the bottom. Let's work our way up. This is going to be a heavy UFC podcast today because UFC 274 deserves it, because it's not a weak pay-per-view. If you think it's a weak pay-per-view, that's because you're weak. Let's start off from the early prelims. Journey Newson, Fernie Garcia. Why are we starting off with the very first fight of the day? Well, it's because Fernie Garcia is from my hometown. He's from El Paso, Texas. This is his UFC debut, and I'm cheering for him like crazy, man. It's very rare when you see guys from El Paso make it into. We're starting to get them more now. I love that about El Paso. I'm not in El Paso anymore, but I love seeing everyone from my hometown. We got quarterback in the NFL. We got Fernie Garcia making his UFC debut. We got a few guys from El Paso making. We got a couple professional boxers. So hopefully El Paso can start being a little bit of a hub for some MMA fighters, man. There's a lot of angry Mexicans in El Paso that love to fight. Let's get the proper training. Let's get some more fighters in the UFC, man. So Fernie Garcia, shout out to him. It does not say, let me look at it here. It doesn't have the odds on UFC on the website. Doesn't have the odds posted. But if we go to FanDuel, I believe Fernie Garcia was a favorite in this fight, which he still is, minus 152. Is a slight favorite, not quite even money. He is a slight favorite. Journey Newson, plus 128. Slight favorite for Fernie Garcia. This, like I said, is his UFC debut. He was in Dana White's Contender Series, won a fight, got his opportunity now to make his UFC debut. I'm really excited for that young man. I hope he gets the job done. Journey Newson, not a pushover, not an easy fight, but a guy who's coming off of back-to-back losses, and you would assume that this is kind of that fight for Journey Newson where, hey, you lose this one, you're probably out of the UFC. So a lot of pressure, and that makes that man dangerous. When he knows that he has to win a fight, that's when it could be dangerous for both. It could be dangerous for himself, it could be a detriment to himself, or it could be dangerous for his opponent. Maybe he's the type of guy that holds back. Maybe he doesn't really let it go. And if he knows coming into this fight, this is win or get out, maybe he does stuff that's a little more unpredictable. Maybe he's a little more aggressive. Maybe he comes forward more. He throws the shots that he was holding back before. and maybe that helps him out and gives him that kind of aggression and gives him that pace and that ferocity that he's been missing. Or maybe he doesn't fight like that for a reason, and he pushes forward, gets caught, gets into bad positions, loses focus, is too aggressive, gasses out. So it's going to be interesting to see whenever you see a guy on a losing streak who's opening up in the early prelims, doesn't have a name. I think he only has 3 fights in the UFC. He's 1-2, won his first, lost his 2 next ones, if I'm not mistaken. So it's going to be interesting to see how he comes out and he prepares for this fight, what the mindset is going in to a guy who's making his debut in Fernie Garcia, where he wants to get on the right foot. He wants to start off good in the UFC. He wants to start off 1-0. But when he gets a contract, he knows if he loses this fight, he still has another one. Of course, he can't be thinking about that in the fight, but 2 different, right? One might be at the end of their UFC run, short-lived. One is just getting started. So very interested to see how that plays out in terms of aggression levels and which one's taking the bigger risks in the fight. So I'm rooting for Fernie Garcia, man. I really hope he wins that fight. Loopy, I remember Loopy. She's a slight favorite in that one as well, minus 180. I do remember her last fight. She's really fun to watch, man. She's cool. Not very familiar with Ariane Carlinosi. Not super familiar with her. So we'll skip past that fight. I'll go on to the next fight of the early prelims, which finishes out the early prelims. It's Tracy Cortez and Melissa Gatto. Tracy Cortez, I hate to bring up people in relevance to someone else, but in Tracy's case, I feel like I have to do it. Tracy Cortez is the girlfriend of Brian Ortega, my boy T-City. Tracy Cortez is undefeated in the UFC. She's a slight favorite in this one, minus 145. She's a great wrestler. The hands seem like they're coming along. It seems like she's getting the hands behind them, but look for the takedowns from Tracy Cortez early and often. We're going to see how it goes, man. We're going to see how this training's been. Her last fight was supposed to happen months ago. She pulled out because of an injury. Something was going on. She missed that fight. Now she's able to reschedule another fight. Not the same fight, but she got a fight with Melissa Gatto. And we're going to see how it goes, man. We're going to see how Tracy Cortez does. Hopefully she gets the job done. I'm rooting for Tracy. Nothing against Melissa, but I am just a Tracy Cortez fan for a lot of reasons. But also, I do love Brian T-City. I like Tracy when she first entered the UFC. When those two paired up, it was a little weird. Well, not weird, but it was a topic of discussion along the MMA world. So shout out to Tracy Cortez. I want to see her get it done. She's fighting in her home state. She's fighting in her hometown. Hopefully that adds some extra motivation to her and she can get the job done there and stay undefeated. You know me. I love my undefeated streaks, man. I love hype trains. I love it when people can keep going, keep staying undefeated. Girls like her, Casey O'Neill, anybody who's undefeated in the UFC, I'm always kind of rooting for them just because I'm not a hater. I don't want to see hype trains derailed, and I'm not some huge like, oh, the OGs have to prevail and they have to be, stop these young hype trains. Like, nah, man, I want to see the hype trains. I want to see them. Moving on to the prelims. Who opens up the prelims? Francisco Trinaldo, who's always fun to watch. Basically even money against Danny Roberts, but Trinaldo is always fun to watch, man. He will take a shot to give a shot. He does not care. Blagoy Ivanov against Marcos Rogerio de Lima. That one's going to be a banger. The odds aren't set on here, so let's look for this fight. We're going to have to go down a little bit. Ivanov is a 156 favorite, minus 156, which I would assume so. He is ranked in the top 15, right at 15. If you haven't seen these dudes, I mean, it's a heavyweight bout. Heavyweight bouts are what they are, man. You get clipped and they're out. That's why heavyweights are always going to be the funnest fights to watch. Sometimes they can be the sloppiest. If you're looking for the skill, you might want to go down a few divisions to see that speed and skill and agility and movement and greatness. Heavyweights is big boys that can slug it out. Big hits. Who lands the big one? But Ivanov is a slight favorite in that one. I expect him to win, but it could go either way. Rogerio de Lima does have the ability to shut your lights off, as do almost every heavyweight. Brandon Royval and Matt Schnell is a huge fight in the flyweight bout. In the flyweight division, Brandon Royval is a guy who has been there. We've seen him before. We've seen him fight the top guys. Matt Schnell is a guy who's kind of rising. So it's one of those where they're meeting, right? Brandon Royval started creating a lot of hype, started moving up, and Matt Schnell is now doing it well. Brandon Royval, lost to some of those big names, the guys that we see holding the championship belt now, or, the number 1, 2 contenders in the world, he's lost to them. So here we are. They meet in the middle. Where does Brandon Royval go from here? Does he continue on back up into the top 5? Does he get those opportunities? Does he get one of those rematches with those top guys and hopefully turn it around? Or are we seeing the changing of a guard where Matt Schnell is on his way up and he can surpass and he can himself jump? You would assume what the UFC's been doing lately is anytime you fight somebody, Cheeto Vera did it, a few others did it, where anytime they fight, you have a guy at like 8, 9, 7, somewhere around there. If they fight a guy at 6 or 5, they just take their spot. So I'm assuming if Matt Schnell wins, he'd move to number 6, where Brandon Royval would probably jump to 9. They just kind of swap rankings, which, everyone always said, like, rankings don't matter in the UFC. Rankings shouldn't matter. Even Dana White's like, rankings don't matter in the UFC. But they do. We've been seeing it lately with the matchmakers where it's just an easier job, I guess. It just becomes an easier job for the matchmakers to say, okay, we have these fights that we want to pick out in order to do these like title eliminator fights, or in order to see who gets the next, once you start creating title eliminators, once you start creating number 1 contenders matches, then the rankings really matter. The only time the rankings don't matter is when it's somebody who can provide a huge pay-per-view bump. The only time rankings don't matter is when Conor McGregor is involved. The only time rankings don't matter is when Conor's involved. That's basically it. Other than that, guys, the rankings matter. Jorge Masvidal might be another one. Nate Diaz might be another one. You see what I'm getting at? That's the only time rankings don't matter anymore. They didn't used to. Before, there was a thing where this guy wanted to fight this guy. If they both want to fight each other that badly, we'll pair them up. We don't really care about where rankings are. We don't pay attention to the rankings. Yes, they come out. Yes, we put the rankings. But just because you're 6 doesn't mean you're going to fight a top 5 guy. Just because you're number 8 does not mean you're going to fight somebody ahead of you. It doesn't always work that way. You can be 8 and fight somebody out of the top 50. It's how it used to be. Not so much anymore. Now, if you're someone like Matt Schnell and you're number 9, he doesn't want to take a 15, 13. No, I want a guy ahead of me. And what they do is, okay, you want a guy ahead of you, it's going to be someone that just dropped out of the top 5. Hence, Brandon Royval. And in Brandon Royval's case, hey, I'm number 6, but I can't fight 3, 2, 1. I fought a few of them and lost already. So I have to take somebody back because I'm coming off of losses. And that's where they meet. That has been the UFC's MO. If you follow them, you could damn near be a matchmaker yourself to see the pattern that the UFC's been doing with the rankings. So Matt Schnell, Brandon Royval. If Schnell wins, I'm assuming he's just going to take Royval's spot at number 6. And when he does that, if you continue on a win streak, then yeah, he's going to demand some money in the top 5 and he'll probably get it. With that being said, Brandon Royval is a minus 240. He's a favorite in this fight, a 2-1 favorite. So people are really high on Brandon Royval. Looks like the money came in heavy on Brandon Royval. We've seen him. We know what he looks like when he's at his best, but he's not always at his best, which is concerning for him. Hopefully this is a fight where he can lock in and get it done. Macy Chiasson and Norma Dermont. Dermont is a minus 225 favorite. Number 15 against the number 11 in the women's featherweight bout. Again, guys, rankings, they're not supposed to matter. Everyone will tell you they don't matter, but they tell you that just so when Conor, Nate, and Masvidal fight, that's their built-in excuse is, hey, we've always told you rankings don't matter. I don't know why you guys think it matters. Well, because it matters all the other times. That's why. So Macy Chiasson, Norma Dumont, they're going to fight. I've seen Norma. I'm going to be honest, I don't remember seeing too much of Macy. She looks familiar, but I do remember Norma's last fight. I remember seeing her. There's a reason why she's a 2-1 favorite in this fight. I have Norma winning. She's making that climb. She looks like she's a really young, hot prospect in that women's featherweight spot or division. So she's moving up. She's getting, the wins, the big wins. She just cracked into the top 15. She's on a winning streak. I don't know if she's undefeated, to be honest with you. 7-1. I don't know if she's undefeated in the UFC, though. But she is 7-1. Chiasson will have a big height advantage in that fight. But again, why? Look, guys, I know what I'm talking about. Perfect example. Okay, Macy Chiasson, she's 11. Norma Dumont's 15. Norma's not going to take a fight outside of the top 15, especially when she's coming off of a win and just jumped into the top 15. That's the pattern. When you're on a winning streak, when you're coming off of a win that pushes you to top 15, you will not fight someone outside of the rankings. Who will you fight? Someone ahead of you. What did I say was the pattern? someone that is coming off of a loss in the top 15. Here's Macy Chiasson. Lost her last fight, moved back down to number 11. Maybe she was at 9. Drops to 11. There we go. There's our fight. If Dermont wins, guess where she's going to be, guys? At number 11. The rankings matter unless it's Connor, Nate, or Jorge. The rankings do matter. It makes the matchmaker's job easier. Wade, I don't know. This isn't an official weigh-in. They're doing the official weigh-ins today, so I don't know why it has Macy weight at 148. Maybe that's what she weighed in the last fight. Maybe she came in over, but I don't know why that would be in there. She's going to have a little bit of a reach advantage. 71% of Norma's wins are by decision. 38% of her wins are by decision. 38% for Macy are by KO. Or TKO. Norma Dumont does not have any wins by KO or TKO. So, Norma, with the reach advantage, if Macy can keep that distance, if she can use her striking, it seems like on paper, again, I'm not too familiar with Macy, but if she is that type of striker, significant strikes, 4.04 landed per minute, 46% significant strike percentage, 45% defense. So the defense for Norma Dumont, she doesn't get hit too often, doesn't get hit too much. Takedown average 1.28. Chiasson's at 1.08. Takedown accuracy 45%. Takedown defense 100%. Has never been taken down. I don't see Macy Chiasson taking her down just by the looks of it from the stats. So it looks like this is going to be a fight that Norma Dumont's going to look to get Chiasson down, get her to the ground, especially with her takedown defense is pretty high, 64%. But her takedown accuracy, her being Norma Dumont, her takedown accuracy being at 45%. She does have good takedowns. So it looks like that's going to be a fight that if I'm putting money on it, I'm going to say go with the decision win. I don't think this fight's going to get finished, especially if Norma's going to be looking to close the distance, get inside, maybe Chiasson can catch her. But especially if she's trying to keep the distance, keep her, fight from the outside, it's going to be a little tough to see her putting her lights out or getting the TKO finish for Macy. It looks like Norma's going to look to take her down, win by decision, as she does over 70% of the time. And then the next fight is one that I'm hyped for. Randy Brown, Chaos Williams. This fight's going to be wild, man. If you remember, it's Rude Boy against the Ox Fighter. These two dudes are freaking incredible. I love watching both of them. Randy Brown, I remember his last submission that he had. It was like a one-arm submission. And Chaos Williams is a dude that comes forward and has power, thunderous power. Randy Brown has really good movement, though. He's going to have a height advantage. Not too much of a reach advantage, though. 78 to 77 in the reach. Chaos Williams listed at 169, where Randy Brown's listed at 182. Again, I don't know where they're getting these weigh-ins from. Like, if they're both weighing in on target, I guess it's just to show you that Randy Brown's probably going to be the heavier fighter come fight day, which is weird to imagine because Chaos Williams is fucking jacked, man. He's built like a motherfucker. So 6'3", obviously having that 3-inch advantage is probably going to add more weight to you. 16% of the wins for Randy Brown are by KO or TKO, where 54% of Chaos Williams' wins are by KO or TKO. So this is a fight where Randy Brown wants to avoid power shots at all time. Use your same thing as the last fight, right? The only difference is, I promise you, Chaos Williams is not going to go for any takedowns. He has 0 takedown average. He does have 50% takedown or nothing for takedown accuracy. So that means Chaos Williams has either never attempted a takedown or has attempted one in his UFC career and did not get it. So this fight's not going to the ground unless Randy Brown decides to take it there, where Randy Brown's averaging under 1 takedown per fight. So probably not going to the ground. Randy Brown's going to use his length, use that height advantage. Now, he doesn't have a huge reach advantage, which might be a problem, but he's still going to use that height advantage. Look for kicks up the middle for Randy Brown, something that's going to stop Chaos Williams from coming inside, getting in close, changing levels, throwing those big overhand hooks. Chaos Williams has a huge right hand. That overhand right is nasty for Chaos. He has the ability to shut your lights out. But this is going to be a very, very technical standing, very technical striking match between Randy Brown and Chaos Williams. Don't miss this one, right? With Dana White's, I'm sure this is on Dana White's. If you don't know now, you know. This one has to be a don't miss fight. You got to be ready to watch Randy Brown and Chaos Williams. And then we finish off the prelims with Andre Fialho and Cameron Van Camp. Fialho is a 4-1 favorite. In my opinion, there's a reason why Fialho is a monster, coming off of his last win from Portugal, 6 foot. Cameron Van Camp, 6'2". Both of them with an even 74-inch reach. So another situation where the taller dude is not enjoying a reach advantage. 79, almost 80%. Let's just round it up to 80. 80% of Andre Fialho's wins are by knockout or TKO. This is going to be a tough night for Cameron Van Camp. Van Camp does not have anything recorded. He is 0-0-0. This is his first fight in the UFC. Late replacement fight. I don't know the backstory on this, but Andre Fialho is a really good fighter. I'm not going to say that he's somebody who's, killing it, but he's really good. And for him to get a newcomer, that's the reason why you're seeing that 4-1 favorite. If you know something that I don't know, then that's good money to put on Van Camp. I don't know the guy, so I would stay away from that like crazy unless you have a lot of money to put Fialho. I don't like to bet on people that I know nothing about. And then we're going into the main card. This is what I was talking about, those OGs, man. The guys who have been doing it forever. Donald Cerrone, Joe Lauzon. This is one of those fights where they're saying like loser leaves town, basically. The loser is going to ride off and retire. Donald Cerrone, OG of the game. OG of the game. This is going to be an interesting fight. I honestly have no idea how this is going to play out. Donald Cerrone, notorious slow starter. 3-round fight is tough to be a slow starter in a 3-round fight. But the amount of fights that these guys have. Look at these records. 36-16 for Donald Cerrone. 28-16 for Joe Lauzon. Donald Cerrone obviously coming off a few losses. His winning record has not been great over the last 5 fights. 6-1. Cerrone will enjoy a height and reach advantage in this fight. Yeah, man, submissions are great from both guys. It's just what you expect from MMA fighters. Maybe no longer at the highest level. They may not have the athleticism. They may not have the power. They may not have some of the chin that they used to have in their early days while they were making their ascension in the UFC. But they're both veterans of the game between striking, grappling, jiu-jitsu when it gets on the floor, wrestling. Like, they have everything. Donald Cerrone, when you look at him, you look at a complete MMA fighter. There's no point in his game where you go, that looks terrible, that looks sloppy. He's not a specialist. He's more of a purist in MMA. His jiu-jitsu is great. His takedown defense is very good. He can take you down at times. He has great kicks. He can knock you out with his hands. Like, it's the full culmination of just full-on MMA training. That's what both these guys have, and that's what's going to be so fun about this fight. Yes, again, this isn't going to be the fight at the highest level. I'm talking as if these are two guys that are high-level MMA fighters. No, unfortunately, their bodies have gotten older. Their chins have deteriorated a little bit. They lost some of that quickness and fast twitch. So, yeah, they look a little bit different. But the IQ and the way it's going to go, I love this fight for Cerrone. I felt like the last few fights, he was getting some dogs that were on their way up and that were going to pass him, and he had to face some of those guys. I don't remember. There was a few rumors. There was a few rumors that Donald Cerrone might have fought. I remember a while back that Cerrone, there was, I guess because of that press conference, I forget what card it was, where Cerrone was on the card and Chimaev was, where there was like maybe rumors of Cerrone taking on Chimaev at 170. Thank God that didn't happen. Then there was rumors afterwards that Cerrone was going to get Paddy Pimblett at 155. I'm glad that didn't happen. Not because Chimaev, I think, destroys Donald Cerrone. I think he hurts him badly, and I don't want to see that for Cerrone. I don't think he's at that level anymore. And for Paddy, I don't know if I'm not saying Paddy's a championship level. I think Paddy the Baddy himself will tell you that he's not championship level yet. But for a guy that's that young with all that hype, you don't want to give him Cerrone, a huge name like that right away, because if he does go out there and beat the crap out of Cerrone, if Cerrone really is just kind of over the hill, just doesn't have the athleticism, the quickness to keep up with someone like Paddy Pimblett, then all of a sudden, Cerrone's kind of like, all right, you lost to a dude that is very early in the UFC. Yes, Patty's been doing a lot, but a guy that we're not sold on yet, you lost to him. Where do we go from here? And he's young. And then for Patty, like, all right, you beat Donald Cerrone, people already want to see him fight dudes in the top 10. If you beat Cerrone, people are going to definitely be like, all right, you're getting top 10 fights. You got 2 more fights for a championship now, which is nuts. So I'm glad that fight didn't take place either. But he's always game. He's always with it, man. So shout out Donald Cerrone. I don't know who's going to win this fight. To be honest, Cerrone's a slight favorite. I am rooting for Donald. I do love Cowboy, man. I've always had so much respect for Donald Cerrone, just a real one in the game. So I hope that Donald Cerrone can get the job done. I hope that he wins this fight. And yeah, I wouldn't mind both of them riding off into the sunset. Like both of these guys having this be their last fight and retiring. I don't know what Cerrone still wants. I don't know what else is left for him. I think he knows that he's never even getting into the top 10 at this point for Cerrone. Is just, one, I think it's too tall of a task. 2, it just, and then what? You know what I mean? Like rankings and moving up the ladder, like moving up the leaderboard type of stuff. Like if you're thinking it from like a video game sequence, like that just doesn't make sense for Donald Cerrone at this point of his career. Like you're in the top, okay, you win a fight. Let's say he's like, hey, I won this one. I want to stick around and I want to try to win some more. Okay. But what's the end goal? If the end goal is I just want cool fights, he could do that forever. He could do that as long as he wants. I just want cool fights, man. Give me some cool fights. You know what I mean? You can still, the OGs of the game, you bring back and set up cool fights for Donald Cerrone. And guys that are out of the top 15 where we just want to see Cerrone compete. We don't really care about the names he's competing against anymore. Guys that maybe came into the UFC, lost one, won one, and now here's Donald Cerrone. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. If he wants to just fight, he could do that forever. But if Cerrone's intentions are to get on a win streak and start moving back up, what's the end goal? A championship isn't in sight, right? Let's be honest. If you're a huge Cerrone fan, you might be upset at me saying this, but the thoughts of him ever getting to a championship level should be gone. They should be long gone. Even, like I said, so what's the goal of rankings? Only time you really enter these rankings and you start caring about rankings is because you're trying to make a championship run. So for Cerrone, I just don't know what for him, man. I would love to see Cerrone win and both of those guys retire. Both those guys leave their gloves in the cage. That'll be freaking dope. But OGs in the game. On to the next fight. 2 more OGs of the game. Mauricio Shogun Rua, former champion against OSP, Ovin St. Prude, the guy who basically changed the name of a submission. So, instead of the Von Flute choke, he's pretty much changing the name for it. It's the St. Prude choke now. But 2 guys who are high level. OSP does have a slight favorite. He's a slight favorite against Mauricio Shogun Rua. It's going to be interesting where that fight takes place. Again, 2 guys who have been training and doing this for so long that there's really no glaring weaknesses. It's just the athleticism, power, and everything that I talked about for Cerrone and Laizon. They just don't have that athleticism anymore. They don't have that quickness, that sharpness anymore, and that's what's lacking them. But neither one of them are terrible on the feet. They're not terrible on the ground. You do imagine that if it does go to the ground, especially if OSP the freaking cough is back. Last episode was terrible. I definitely don't feel it this. Last episode, it felt like there's like literally something in there scratching the inside of my throat. This one is not as bad, and I had to get some water with me. But it's just the allergies here are freaking nuts, man. I'm taking allergy pills at night, taking them in the morning, and I still feel that tickle in my throat. I still have the sniffles from time to time. It sucks. But anyway, back to that fight. You would imagine that if OSP can get the fight to the ground, especially if he's on top, Shogun, I don't think, has the skills off his back to really threaten OSP, and OSP is really good in transitions, getting into side control, going for those takedowns, obviously, if Mauricio Shogun Rua tries to hold on to the neck, which, again, OG of the game, I'd be really surprised if Shogun loses via St. Prude choke. Like, I would be really surprised. I think a veteran of that caliber, a guy who's been training and doing this forever and knows how to study film, I'd be very surprised if he gets caught with that choke. But it's a possibility. But OSP from the top is very dangerous. He knows how to get a lot of control time, and he doesn't really let people up that easy. And like I said, he can transition and he can threaten with a lot of submissions from top position, where a lot of guys, their threats come from bottom now. Like a lot of dudes, their biggest submission threats are from their back. And OSP is one of those guys who he will, a lot of guys when they're on top, it's more ground and pound, add strikes, add damage, win the round if you can't get the finish. But OSP is one of those rare guys still that looks for submission finishes from top. And then we go on to the big dogs. We go on to the fights that I'm really looking forward to. Michael Chandler, Tony Ferguson. Chandler is a minus 380. Some might say disrespectful to Tony Ferguson, but Tony Ferguson's on a 3-fight losing streak. I think this shows you the respect that not only the fans, but also the UFC, even though Tony's going to disagree with me. If you've seen his last interviews and what he's been saying, he's been very critical of Dana White and the UFC. I would say of the UFC in general, more so than just Dana. I don't feel like it's very personal to Dana White, but Dana White being Dana White, having the amount of power and control that he has over the UFC, it's going to seem like it's a direct shot at him and everything's directed at him. But he's just talking about overall the UFC. He's talking about tough and how that situation sucked and they could have done it better. He's talking about health insurance and how it's bullshit that the fighters still aren't getting health insurance. And he's talking about how they use you and spit you out, how they don't really care about anybody. So he's been going in, man. He's been going in on the UFC, but I still feel like the UFC gives him so much respect to lose 3 fights in a row and still be ranked 7th. That there's still a belief in Tony Ferguson, and it might be to his detriment. It might be bad for him because now he gets Michael Chandler, who has lost 2 in a row, who's still ranked in the top 5 after losing 2 in a row, but he lost to the champion. And he lost to a guy who's fighting for the bout. He lost to the main eventers, right? That's it. He's had 3 fights in the UFC. The win over Dan Hooker, loses the 2, and he had his moments. It's not like we saw him against Charles Oliveira where we go, oh, he's not in this class. He's not here. He's not ready for this. We thought he was going to win in the first round. There was a moment where he had Charles hurt. He had him down. He was hitting him with shots from top, kind of hesitant to enter his guard too much, but raining down shots. And we thought, oh man, this fight could be finished here in the first round. Comes down the second round, gets exposed, leaves that chin open, takes a shot, loses. We know what happened. But he had his moments, and he had a moment in that fight where we really thought he was going to be crowned champion. So he's proven that he's at that level. He's a championship level fighter. Then he fights Gaethje. Again, first round, has his moments. I know Gaethje throwing that disrespect his way a little bit, which Gaethje, I don't know. Gaethje's always been a little bit of a shit talker. Like Gaethje's always been very confident of himself, and I think Gaethje's always had that chip on his shoulder where he's always felt like people have disrespected him in a way. He's always felt like people don't give him his credit for being an intelligent fighter. They all think he's just reckless and punch drunk and just swings for the fences, which I agree with him. He's not. I agree with him that he is calculated. He is trying to find angles and clean shots. He does set up shots beautifully. What he does with those outside leg kicks, those low calf kicks, the way he uses those to set up other shots later on in the fight and kind of limit your movement, limit your ability to press forward. And the uppercut he hit, Chandler was nasty. The check hooks that he was destroying Tony Ferguson were nasty. Like, he knows how to set up shots. I give Justin Gaethje that credit. And we'll get to Justin Gaethje more. I give him that credit. But I think because of that chip on his shoulder is why you've seen him be he's not being so disrespectful, but why he's just kind of, where you feel like it may be a little overconfident, because I think he just feels like people still aren't giving him the credit he deserves. And he said Michael Chandler and him, he doesn't know why it was fight of the night, like he doesn't know, or fight of the year, he doesn't know why people are talking about it as a battle. He was like, I didn't feel that it was a battle. I felt like I destroyed him. Like, he hit me twice. Well, I disagree. I disagree. In the first round, he had you hurt. Chandler had Gaethje hurt in that first round. He had him wobbled. He had him stunned. He was pressing. And Chandler pressed forward the entire fight. There wasn't a moment where Chandler curled up and it looked like he was going to give up. He got rocked a bunch. Gaethje destroyed him in the second and third round. I give you credit for that, the amount of damage he put on. But Chandler never quit. He never backed up. Every time he would get rocked, he would come forward, and then he would land some shots of his own. Even in the second and third round, he landed shots of his own. Did Gaethje land the bigger shots, the more impactful shots, the uppercut that dropped him that almost finished the fight? Absolutely. That's why Gaethje won that fight. In my opinion, I thought that fight could have gone 3-0 for Justin Gaethje. I thought he could have won all 3 rounds, despite Chandler wobbling him and hurting him in the first round. He did land enough shots himself at the end of that round, him being Justin Gaethje, that I thought could have won him the first round, and then he definitely won rounds 2 and 3. But Chandler still had his moments, and that's why it was Fight of the Year candidate. It was a fucking brawl, man. For Gaethje to be like, that wasn't really a brawl, he didn't really touch me, I just kicked his ass. It's like, okay, I get it. You're the big bad wolf, I feel you. But it shows that Chandler, again, he deserves to be here. He deserves to be at the top. He's proven it. He's went from Bellator champion of the UFC. We didn't know how it was going to go. His debut against Dan Hooker could not have gone any better. However, you leave that room to see the dissension of Dan Hooker since that fight. He did win one more after that. But the dissension of Dan Hooker, where you go, well, maybe Dan Hooker's is not that great. Maybe Dan Hooker's not as great as we thought he was. Maybe his chin's starting to deteriorate a little too much. Maybe he can't take those shots anymore. Maybe the Dustin Poirier fight took a lot out of him. That was a war. So the questions are looming for Chandler. Even though he had a good showing against Oliveira, he lost. Even though he had good moments against Gaethje, he lost. So now here we are, still in the top 5. This is a fight for both guys, where if they lose, I don't know, man. These aren't fucking spring chickens, you know what I mean? These guys aren't young dudes who are chomping at the bit, who, if they lose and have their setback, it'll set up for a comeback later on like that. That's not where these guys are. These two guys have been there. They've been in that position I just talked about 10 years ago. Like, these guys are at the point where they're like, this is the last run. Even for Chandler, who's only 3 fights in the UFC. Yes, I get that, but he's into his 30s. He's had over 20 plus professional fights. This is his last run. His only run was his last run because of the route he took from Bellator to the UFC and becoming a Bellator champion and being highly decorated and being highly recognized and the push that he had going into the UFC and the hype he had coming into the UFC. Because of that, Michael Chandler's first run in the UFC at gold is his only run at gold. In my opinion, I can't see Chandler losing to Ferguson, losing 3 in a row, and then somehow getting back to the win streak, beating guys that he already lost to, like Charles Oliveira, like him, or like Dustin Poirier, getting to these guys and beating them. If he loses this one, Michael Chandler's not, even now, Michael Chandler's not 1 win away from a championship. Poirier said he's going to fight the winner of this, or at least said like he expects to fight the winner of this. So if Chandler beats Ferguson, we know then that fight might take place with Justin Poirier. And if he wins that one, does he get a title shot? Does he get one more than a title shot? So even right now, he's at least 2 wins away. If he loses to Ferguson, what is he, 3 wins? 4 wins away from a championship belt? I mean, 3 or 4 wins, we're talking about a whole 2 years, For a guy that's been in the game this long, and the guys that he's going to have to fight to get back there, it's going to have to be a rematch with Gaethje or Oliveira. Justin Poirier ain't no easy win for Michael Chandler. Just right now at this moment, gun to the head, I kind of like Poirier in that fight, to be honest with you. So, whoever loses this fight, I think that's it. Not for their UFC career, but I think the championship opportunity becomes such a daunting task, such a big ask for them, especially when you have guys like Dariush, when you have a guy like Islam Makhachev. There's a long list. There's guys that are ahead of you right now that I don't think you could jump. And of course, there's a guy who I told you the only time rankings don't matter That guy might be coming back, and his name's Conor McGregor. Yeah, he might be looking for a 170 fight, but he'll mix it up on us and go 155 and then fucking make championship weight, So really interesting to see there. The loser in that, like I said, the loser of that fight, in my opinion, is going to have a really long climb back to the top. I think this is the last of it. I think this is a must-win fight for both guys. I think if they win, then they can still see a vision of maybe getting back to gold one more time, maybe going through this run one more time, 3 fights, whatever it is, top 4 fights, but 3 fights probably gets you back to a title for the winner, maybe even 2, but then they can make their ascension back to the top. They can make it happen, but this is the last chance, especially for someone like Tony Ferguson, who's fought them all, man. He fought Charles, he fought Gaethje, he fought but now Dariush. I don't like his odds against Islam. I don't like his odds against Poirier. So it's a tough to envision Tony Ferguson getting back when those names he's gonna have to beat. If he beats Michael Chandler, who he's a plus 290 underdog in, it's tough to envision Tony Ferguson. But I love Tony, man. Tony and Nate are 2 of the guys. Conor too, man. People talk shit about Conor, but I'll give him the credit where Tony, Nate, and Conor, they really are the anybody, any place type of dudes. And you see that with Ferguson, because why would you go from a 3-fight losing streak? Was it 3? Yeah, Poirier, Oliveira, Dariush. Why would you go on a 3-fight losing streak and then take the number 5? Who does that? Who do you know in the history of UFC has gone on a 3-fight losing streak and fought the number 5 ranked guy? That's the respect I'm talking about that the UFC still has for Ferguson. And for Ferguson, it's like, you took that fight. And I get why he took it, right? Because I did say this is the last chance for him. So if this is the last chance for you, you want the guy at the highest ranking that you can find. You want the guy with the highest ranking possible, because if you fight a guy who's ranked 13, 14, somewhere around there, that's one extra fight you're going to have to win. Like I said, with Chandler, for Ferguson, maybe it's 3 fights. Maybe it's 3 wins, and he's back to a title fight. He would have to have a win over one of those guys that I mentioned that he lost to. A win against someone like Islam would be huge, and that would propel him into a championship fight. But, 3 fights right now. This win, 2 more wins, and then he could be back in a championship talk. Where if he fought somebody at 13, 14, that's another one. So now we're looking at 4 fights, because that doesn't do anything for you. That just kind of gets you back on the winning path. But that's what I would have kind of picked for Tony. But that's just me, because I'm not Tony. If I'm Tony, no. Like, if I'm Tony Ferguson, no, this is the fight I pick, because I believe in myself and I want to be a champion. But if I'm making the fight for Tony, if I'm his agent, if I'm his manager, yeah, we're taking someone at 13, 14, somewhere around there. That's who we're taking. Because we just want to get you back on the winning path. We just want you to get a win. Once you get a win, then let's move back up and let's see if there's someone that's fallen in the top 5, somewhere around there. If Poirier loses the next one, maybe we go Poirier because he's on a 2-fight losing streak. Like, then we start looking for something. Maybe we set up the Conor fight. Like, then we start, then we go. But that would be someone looking out for the best interest of Tony, not Tony himself. Tony himself, perfect fight. Yeah, this is the fight to make. So, really good fight. Tony's ability to be unorthodox, to be unpredictable, that gives him a chance at all times. It gives him a chance at all times. And Tony's saying all the right things. He's saying things that, listen, when this fight was made, I was like, oh no. Oh no. Poor Tony. Poor Tony. Right? To be honest, the way I saw him lose those fights, the Justin Gaethje fight, man, the damage he took to the head, just it worried me so much to think about the power of Gaethje, how Tony gets hit. Listen, guys, Tony has not been getting hit recently. Throughout Tony's career, even during the double-digit win streak, Tony still got hit a lot. Go back and watch the Pettis fight. Tony got hit a lot. Tony gets hit, guys. He does. He'll take one to give one, and that's why we love him. But when you do that against Justin Gaethje, you see what happens. If Michael Chandler and Gaethje said it himself, Gaethje said if you fight Tony Ferguson a certain way, he's beatable. He's like, in my opinion, he's easily beatable if you fight him a certain way. but he will force you to not fight him that way. You have to try to fight him that way. Will Michael Chandler fight him that way or not? Will Michael Chandler be able? And Ferguson's smart enough, man. People don't give Tony Ferguson credit on his fight IQ, and he said it. We have to fight the ego. We have to fight his ego first. What Tony Ferguson is leading to is we need to get him out of this pick your shot, set up right. We need to test that ego of his. We need to see if he's really ready to make things wild and nasty in there. Because if he's ready to do that, now I got a shot. Now I can fight my fight. Now he's in my world. So we're going to test that ego, and Tony Ferguson's right. That's, in my opinion, that's the way I can see Tony winning. His Chandler's too aggressive. He's trying to fight in the pocket. He's in tight, and Tony's throwing elbows, hits him with some nasty stuff up the middle. That uppercut is really nasty of Ferguson. Go back and watch the Justin Gaethje fight. That uppercut, I actually probably have it right here for you, but that uppercut Ferguson hit Justin Gaethje with is lethal. I can see him landing that same shot on Chandler because of Chandler's tendencies to drop that, to lower to drop levels. He'll drop levels and either shoot. He'll drop levels to fake the shot. He'll drop levels to throw an overhand right. He changes levels a lot, but he kind of keeps his head on that center line when he changes levels, and that's where Justin Gaethje caught him. Justin Gaethje noticed that he closes the distance, changes levels to throw that overhand right, but he kind of keeps his head in the center line, and Justin Gaethje started hitting him with those uppercuts. He hit him with it about 4 times in that fight, but one of them was nasty and damn near looked like it took his lights out. And Tony Ferguson could hit him with that same shot, and Tony Ferguson's going to be looking for that shot. I guarantee you Ferguson's going to throw some uppercuts in this fight as Chandler tries to change levels. Also interesting is Michael Chandler, right? Does he take the game plan from Gaethje? Michael Chandler has nasty low kicks of himself. We saw that be a big effect on Tony Ferguson. The check hook, the left hook, after that, Justin Gaethje was throwing the right low calf kick, right? His right leg to Tony Ferguson's left leg. Low calf kick, coming back underneath, right? You throw it, duck under to the left, swing back under to the right, throw that left hook over the top. He kept catching Ferguson with that same shot over and over. I wonder if Chandler's going to try to steal that game plan. So check for that. Check for Ferguson throwing uppercuts, and check for Michael Chandler. Low calf kick, right? Right leg, low calf kick, bam. Swinging back around with the left hook, following up with the left hook after. Low calf kick, left hook. Follow that combination as well. So a fight that I do see Chandler landing. In my opinion, how do I see the fight going? I see Chandler hitting him with a straight right. I see him hitting with some straight shots. That right hand that Chandler has, he usually sets it up. It's just a simple 1-2, but I said it kind of changes levels on you. And it'll change levels on you, and it'll be overhand right. And you go, okay, cool. He'll change levels and throw the right hand to the body. You go, okay, cool. Then all of a sudden, he'll throw a little jab out there. You'll either parry it, or he might touch you with it, but he'll throw the jab, and then he'll look like he's about to level change the same way he's done, where he level changes into a right to the body, or he level changes into a takedown attempt or something. But instead of level changing into those things, he kind of level changes, steps forward with his right hand, and boom, straight right to the grill. Chandler has landed that on so many people from his Bellator days, even to now. That's one of Chandler's best punches, in my opinion, is that straight right hand. I think he's going to hit Tony with it. We're going to see how Tony's chin holds up. Listen, the damage that he took to Gaethje is one thing, and I get that, but don't forget he didn't go down. Don't forget that Gaethje didn't knock him out. Don't forget that Gaethje didn't get on top and start wailing on him after he put his lights out or, stunned him, dropped him. That didn't happen. So even though he took all that damage, you still see the toughness and that chin on Tony Ferguson. Right? Charles Oliveira didn't touch him up. Charles Oliveira dominated in the wrestling department, and that's the other one. Tony's saying the right things, guys. He's saying that he went back to his wrestling roots. He's saying that against Charles Oliveira. One of the wackiest things I heard is he said in Charles Oliveira fight, we didn't do one bit of jiu-jitsu training. Why the fuck not? Why? I just gave you praise. I'm just giving Tony Ferguson praise, saying that he has a really high fight IQ. He does in the cage. Maybe he has terrible fight IQ outside of the cage. Maybe his techniques and training and stuff is just so, he just wants to be so different. I don't know. I don't understand why on God's green earth you would be fighting against the number one submission finisher in UFC history in Charles Oliveira where you yourself and Tony Ferguson are a black belt in jiu-jitsu. You train with Eddie Bravo in 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. You have of people. The whole reason people thought you would be able to beat Khabib, the people that thought he'd be able to beat Khabib, was because of the things he can do off his back. And if Khabib gets into situations, Tony can threaten him with a lot of different, whether it's the Darce choke, the guillotine, triangle chokes, arm bars. Like, Tony can threaten with so much shit off his back, and the elbows off his back that can slice. Like, that's why people who thought you would beat Khabib thought you would beat him. So to see Charles Oliveira go in, take him down, control him, transition to whatever he wanted to. Tony Ferguson did some good shit off his back, so he was still attempting to get up. He was still attempting a few submissions off of his back. You saw that it was there, but why would you not train for that? Charles Oliveira is the best. Statistically, he is the best in the UFC's ever had to offer in terms of submissions. Why would you not train jiu-jitsu for that fight? That makes no sense. No sense. So to say that he's back into his wrestling roots, he's back with his old wrestling coach, and that's what he's doing, and he's just wants to wrestle. And he even said that he's going to take Michael Chandler down. Okay, Michael Chandler's a damn good wrestler himself. I wonder if those guys shoot. I really wonder, because I can see a way that they both think they have the advantage on the feet. So I wonder if either guy shoots. I'm going to be really interested in that. Really, really interested to see if either one of them go for a takedown in this fight. Maybe if they get hurt, that leads them to going for a takedown. But I want to see if it's just in either one game plan to go for takedowns. Tony Ferguson, the Imanari role. I don't like, you train for it. Like, he made fun of Kamaru Usman, right? I don't know if you've seen the footage. Usman was doing those rolls with Michael Chandler, trying to get him prepared for Tony Ferguson. And Ferguson was like, Kamaru Usman's rolls look like shit. And Chandler's laughing. He's like, yeah, it wasn't a good look for him. It's pretty bad. Right? Because Kamaru Usman does not have that in his bag. Like, he's just doing it just to give him the look. I don't know if you have to really prepare for it. Like, you just need what Kamaru Usman did. Just, hey, get the look. Understand the distance when he's trying this. Understand how to gauge the distance. Stay away from this. Tony Ferguson's tried him in a lot of fights. I don't know if he's ever had one. I don't know if Tony Ferguson's ever successfully completed that. So, maybe he tries it again. The success rate on him is very, very low. But yeah, I see this fight going for Michael Chandler. I think he's going to land enough big shots to win by decision. If I'm not mistaken, it's a 3-round fight. But I do see him winning by decision. Moving on to the co-main event, women's strawweight title fight. Rose Namajunas, the champion, against Carla Esparza, the girl that she lost to many, many years ago in the tough finale. Carla Esparza, really good wrestling background. Just a top level wrestler, one of the best wrestlers you're gonna find in that division. Don't make me call Tatiana Suarez, but Carla Esparza is tough, man. She's really, really good. And Rose, though I think Rose has surpassed Carla in terms of skill, and we see what Rose did. Her fights against Zhang Weili. Weili is fucking phenomenal, man. There's just no other way to put it. Zhang Weili is great, and to see Rose knock her out the first time and then be able to get a decision win over her the second time was really impressive, and it told me a lot I need to know about Rose's mindset, Rose's ability to become a complete fighter. The thing that you still have to worry about in that Zhang Weili fight is that Weili still did get takedowns successfully, and when she took Rose down, she was able to keep her down for quite a bit. Rose was able to get up to her defense. She did get up a few times, but there was a lot of control time in that fight for Zhang Weili. And Weili, in my opinion, is just not the wrestler that Carla is. But there's differences in setting them up. Weili can threaten with the hands to set up the takedowns. She becomes a threat in the striking to force you to come in and close distance, and then she can go for takedowns. Where Carla, I don't know if she has the striking prowess to really force Rose into a scrap it out match, which allows for easier takedowns, which allows for those level changes to surprise your opponent and get her down to the mat. I don't know if Carla has that in her, but she can still find ways to create angles and level change and get those takedowns against Rose. And if Rose gets taken down, it's going to be interesting to see in the first round specifically, if Carla does secure a takedown, how long does it take Rose to get up? If Rose is sitting there, if she's laying there on her back for 2-3 minutes of a round, that gives Carla a lot of confidence moving forward that, hey, I'm going to take her down and I'm going to hold her here. I'm going to hold her here for the entirety of the round. And I can see a way that this fight is a very, very boring win for Carla. I could see it. I could see it not just because we saw it already, right? We saw it in the tough finale. But it's not fair to say that because they've both grown so much. I think Rose has grown. I mean, it's night and day for Rose, I think. Where Carla, I think she's just sharpened up other tools. But I think Rose has gotten stronger. I think she's gotten faster. I think her timing's better. Her distance control is better. Like, everything's better for Rose. Which is why she's a 2-1 favorite, and which is why I'm picking her to win. Which is why I think she's going to get this fight, get the job done this time around. I think she's focused. I think she's going to hopefully manage distance, hopefully keep Carla on the outside, make it really tough when she does shoot from a distance that Carla's not comfortable shooting from. And the footwork, the in and out movement is going to be a lot to handle from Carla Esparza, especially if she's touching the legs early and then coming up over the top, certain strikes as Carla jumps in. Maybe she threatens with some Kimuras as Carla goes for takedowns. That can help prevent takedown attempts from Carla. Just threaten with submissions to get her off of the takedowns. I don't think Carla has the strength that somebody like Jessica Andrade has to pick Rose up and slam her like that when she's looking for a Kimura, where she's looking for submission attempts, a Kimura. But yeah, I think Rose is going to win this fight. I think she's going to defend her bout yet again, and she's going to move on. And there's going to be girls that are going to be, interested to fight her, and there's going to be a new challenger. But Carla, I just think is, it's interesting because matchups make fights, right? If somebody were to tell you who's a better fighter, Joanna Jędrzejczyk or Carla Esparza, I think most people would pick Joanna. For obvious reasons. She was a longer reigning champion. She's been at the top for a long time. The battle she had with Zhang Weili was incredible. But for Rose, Carla's a tougher fight. With Joanna, Rose gets what she wants. We're going to stand. And if there's going to be a takedown, I'm dictating the takedown. And I don't think you have the Jiu Jitsu to threaten off your back. I don't think you're going to catch me in a guillotine. I don't think you're going to do those things. You're just going to have to defend well. But if I can touch you up, and if I can do those things, then I can start working in takedowns. And I just feel to Rose, she probably just feels like she's the best striker in the division. And it's tough to say she's not. When you saw the fights with Joanna, when you saw what happened when her and Weili turned into a just standing battle, it's hard to say that Rose is not the best striker in the division. So, because of that, Joanna's probably not the easiest matchup, not the perfect matchup for her, but it's one that she probably feels a lot more confident, or she feels like she can get into her rhythm. She can dictate how the fight goes. Even though Joanna's still dangerous, she is the one that is in the driver's seat of the fight, where Carla, it's more tactical, it's more preventative than offensive, right? You're a little more on the defense, and anytime a fighter's on the defense, they don't like that. They want to be offensive. They want to dictate how the fight's going to take place. And for Carla, the same thing. Can you close those gaps? Can you find the angles? Is Rose's footwork at the point now where it's too hard to create angles for level changes? Are you going to be shooting from too far outside? Can you get inside? Can you threaten enough with the hands to where she tries to get in those exchanges and you can surprise her with a good level change, whether it's a double leg? I think the takedowns will come from double legs, especially like center of the octagon type stuff. But really interesting fight. I got Rose in that one. Rose is probably my favorite female fighter. Yeah, I would have to say Rose. I was going to say Tatiana Suarez, but Suarez just hasn't been competing. So active female fighter, Rose is my favorite. I love Rose Namajunas, so I'm rooting for her. Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, the main event of the night, baby. I'm super biased. Super, super biased. Charles Oliveira is my favorite fighter in the UFC. I say Rose is my favorite female fighter. That's because Charles is my favorite fighter overall. I love his story, where he's from, the way he speaks, the way he the way he talks about just like a spirit, right? It's just kind of like God's, not necessarily God's plan, but God's will. And he truly feels like as long as he stays humble and true to himself and works hard, like things will all pay out because he's seen them. He's seen them play out. That quote he had really stuck with me. There was the fight against Poirier. Was it Poirier or Chandler? No, the fight against Poirier. After he wins, they were about to announce, where they put the fighters in the middle, they raise his hand, whatever, and they announce the winner. Before that took place, right after he beats Poirier, when they're about to do that, he's walking forward and saying something to the camera. And he's saying something, and you can't understand him because it's in Portuguese, unless you speak Portuguese. But he's saying something, he seems emotional. Seems like he's on the verge of almost tears, where he seems emotional about it. Then they bring him back, and then he has his interview with Rogan. He says a bunch of cool stuff. Afterwards, I see the video later where they translate what he said, and it just stuck with me. What he said was, this world, right? This world told me I was worthless, and look at where I am now. I am the champion. I am a world champion. And that stuck with me, man, because it's different, right? He's not saying people think I'm worthless. They, whoever they is, outside people. No, he's saying life. He said life told me I was worthless. What he's saying is the things that I couldn't control, my environment, where I'm from, the struggles I had to deal with, I can't control those, and no one could control those for me. That's life. And it told me I was worthless. Where I was born, where we were raised, told me I was worthless, and look at where I am now. I am the champion of the world. That resonates with me so much, just to understand that, like, certain, and for him, not to say, I can relate to that. I definitely didn't have the life that Charles Oliveira had, but how could you not root for that guy? How could you not root for that guy? And the gratefulness that he is, he's always back in his hometown in the favela, remodeling his old house, his grandma's house that they grew up in, spending time there, always giving back to the community. Like, the dude is a true champion, and he's weathered the test. He's gone through the storm. You're talking about his early days fighting at 145 pounds, where he was just a scrawny kid who had some tough losses, and he always had this skill set, and we knew the submissions were there. We knew his skill set was high, but there was that quit in him, and he quits, he gets hurt, and he bows out of fights. He just doesn't have that warrior spirit, that warrior heart, and you see him grow into this man that has it now. The fight against Michael Chandler, where he gets clipped, he gets hurt early, and comes back and knocks him out in the second round TKO, but finishes him in the second round right in the beginning of it. It's like, holy shit, this guy's not a quitter anymore. He's not scared anymore. Against Poirier, gets hit, gets hurt in the first round, comes back, gets to the position he wants, dominates the second round, gets into the third, takes his back, submits him. He's not that same guy. You're seeing him become the champion. I truly believe that he's not a paper champion, man. I feel like people keep treating him like he is. He's not. This is a guy where if Khabib was still here, I'm not saying I would pick him to beat Khabib. I'm not saying he would be the favorite over Khabib. But if Khabib was still fighting right now in the champion, I would be very, very, very interested to see how he would deal with Charles Oliveira. Because Charles Oliveira, in my opinion, is what everyone thought Tony Ferguson was. Just my opinion. Don't try to kill me. Don't come for me. But when Tony Ferguson was on his run, and he had all those fights with Khabib, and all those fights fell through and we never saw it, the reasons why we were all very curious was because Tony, we felt, had the striking advantage. Tony's a good wrestler. He can prevent the takedowns well enough, and he had better jiu-jitsu. These are all the things we thought. He was much better off his back. He's the only person that could really, really threaten Khabib off his back. Those are the things we thought about Tony Ferguson, and why it would be very difficult for Khabib, and why we were so interested in that fight. Why we thought, if there's a guy, Tony's the guy. We thought that until we saw him fight Charles Oliveira, where he was able to take him down, hold him down, transition to an armbar, damn near snap his arm off, and just dominate in the wrestling department. So that left us going, all right, well, if he was able to do that to Tony, You don't think Khabib would have been able to do that to Tony? So it becomes very interesting, and that's why I'm at the point where I'm saying Charles is what we thought Ferguson was, where he's actually the one that goes, his striking's better than Khabib. He's more technical on the feet. Khabib's not going to want to stay on the feet, which Khabib doesn't really want to stay on the feet with anybody, but he's not going to be able to stay on the feet with Charles. Charles comes forward. He's not scared of takedown attempts because he has so much confidence in his guard. He has so much confidence off of his back and his submission attempts that he can really threaten Khabib with triangles, with guillotines, with Darce chokes. He can really, really threaten Khabib in that standpoint. And though Khabib's, I think his jiu-jitsu is underrated a little bit, Charles is, like I said, the best. So that's why I don't understand why Charles still isn't getting it, which he's a favorite in this fight, and I'm glad. I think when it opened, Justin was a little bit of a slight favorite, which was like, how, guys? How do we still not give Charles Oliveira the credit that he deserves? But now he's a slight favorite, so I feel better about it that we are giving him that credit. But he got Gaethje, and Gaethje's a problem. Gaethje's a huge, huge problem. Whenever you are somebody who does get hit like Charles does get hit, when you're somebody who doesn't have great head movement like Charles doesn't have great head movement, Justin Gaethje's a guy that you would go, yeah, well, don't fight him. If you told me, hey, I got a guy, he's incredible. He does everything. Muay Thai, his kicks are great. Teep kicks are great. Front kicks are great. Leg kicks are great. He has hands. He's so technical. His straights are great, crisp, clean. His every hook looks so damn textbook. Like, he's a textbook Muay Thai fighter, and he's the best grappler. Well, not grappler, but jiu-jitsu, right? Grappler, I think we get confused with wrestling and jiu-jitsu. We don't know how to differentiate. He's not the best wrestler, but he's the best grappler in MMA. He has the best jiu-jitsu you'll ever see. And I go, okay, damn, that dude sounds amazing. What are his weaknesses? And you go, his head kind of stays in the center line. His head movement's not great, and he takes some shots. Like, he'll take some hits. I go, okay. And you go, who do you think would be a tough matchup for him at 155? Who do you think would be the kind of guy that you don't want to see for this guy, where I just mentioned his strengths and weaknesses? I would go Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje would be the guy. He doesn't have great wrestling, so he can't easily take Gaethje down. Okay, if he can't easily take Gaethje down and it becomes a stand-up fight, a guy that doesn't move his head well, a guy that will eat a big shot, Justin Gaethje's a guy I don't want to see him fight. So now he has Justin Gaethje. I understand why Justin Gaethje does have a lot of support, and especially in his hometown. I'm going to be very interested to see if that plays a factor. It could play a factor. It could be detrimental to either one of those guys. It could be a boost for either one of those guys. Maybe Charles would have a harder time if he fought in like Brazil. I can see Charles like that pressure and everything weighing in. I mean, we saw somebody like Derek Lewis talk about the pressure of fighting for an interim title in Houston, in his hometown, where he was like, the pressure is just too much. It's just too much. I felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. I felt like I just had to win this fight. And I started doing things I don't normally do. I was training ways I don't normally train. I was so tentative. I was so, not scared of getting hurt, but scared of making a mistake, to where I just didn't do anything. And I can see that happening. And I can see it happening for someone like Charles in Brazil, where those pressures are real. And does Justin Gaethje feel that pressure? Is he sitting here saying, the thing that's a little worrying me, the thing that's worrying me just a little bit for Gaethje is the same thing. Go back to when I was talking about Oliveira and Poirier. If you remember, I picked Oliveira in that fight. The thing I talked about from the interviews, and you can't get much. I'm not somebody that it goes too deep into the press conferences, the pre-fight press conferences, and someone that thinks too deep into the stare downs. I don't think too deep into those. People always, you see he's scared, he's this, he's that. Maybe once in a while you might see something from a fighter where you're like, I don't really like that body language, I don't really like something. But there's been too many times. There's been times where guys have been so aggressive and they're confident and they go out there and whoop their ass. Where you're like, yeah, you knew it was over from the stare downs. And then there's been times where guys have that same confidence and aggressiveness and go and get knocked the fuck out. There's been times where people are quiet and they look like the moment's too big for them. And they go out there and they shit the bed. And you go, yeah, see? And then there's times where it's the same way. They look the same way, like the moment's too big. They're not, they look like they don't really have a lot of confidence. Their body language is kind of shitty. And they go out there and dominate. So I don't put too much emphasis on stuff like that. But the one thing that Gaethje did say that was very similar to Poirier, and go back and watch it. I said it about Poirier. I said Poirier has this confidence that it's about him and like his destiny and God's will, and this is God's plan, and this is the culmination of my career. This is it. He was looking forward to be crowned the champion more than looking forward to the war and the puzzle that was Charles Oliveira. It looked like he was already just too wrapped up in the vision of the belt around his waist, not being an interim champion, being the champion, and what's next for him. And that's what it looked like he was just very focused on. And I'm going to be wrong. Like, if you ask Poirier, he's not going to be like, yeah, that was it. I was overlooking Charles. I thought I was just going to dominate him. No, he's not going to say that. But I think he was just really, I think if you could go inside of his mind, the amount of times that he envisioned himself as champion played in his head too much. And I think the same thing's happening for Justin Gaethje. When he's talking, it was, and Charles is the same way, right? When Charles gets asked questions, he says, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to do what I do, I'm going to fight smart, and I'm going to come out as champion. That's confidence. Yeah, he's saying, I'm going to come out as champion, I'm going to defend my belt again, and I'm going to walk away with my belt. That's confidence. What Gaethje's saying is almost more like it's not about him and Charles. Like, it's just deserved. I just deserve this. Like, it's just my time. It's just the thing. And sometimes that's great, but sometimes you could look forward to the victory more than you could look forward to the war. And I think Justin is making the same mistake Dustin did. Those names are too similar. But Justin's making the same mistake that Poirier did, where it's almost, I just can't wait to be champion. I just can't wait to be crowned. I just can't wait to be crowned. I know I'm going to be champion. I just can't wait. Where it's like, dude, Charles is a motherfucker. Gaethje's thought of, as long as I can keep this fight standing, as long as I don't let him take me down, he doesn't have to take you down. We saw with Dustin Poirier, yeah, he took Poirier down in the second round, and he held him there, and Poirier didn't want to, give up his back or let Charles transition into a more dominant position. So he kept him in his guard and became really defensive and gave up that second round. But the fight wasn't won there. The fight was won when Poirier didn't let him take him down, where he took Poirier's back, jumped on it, and put him in a standing rear naked choke. That can happen to Gaethje. If Gaethje gets too aggressive and Charles Oliveira is able to level change, slide to the back, it's over. It's over. What Gaethje showed you in the Khabib fight is his jiu-jitsu is... it's as non-existent as you can imagine at that level. Justin Gaethje's jiu-jitsu skills are, especially off his back, are almost non-existent. I'm not going to say non-existent because I think that if he fights other people, like Gaethje does have a submission win. Gaethje will choke my ass out. So it's not non-existent. But in terms of that level, especially against Charles Oliveira, his jiu-jitsu skills are almost non-existent. So Gaethje doesn't have to get taken down to lose this fight. He could lose this fight from a standing submission. He could lose this fight if he gets tagged and he decides to level change and go for a takedown, which I don't think is happening. I don't think that's going to happen. But if, for some reason, Gaethje looks for a takedown of his own, that could be a Darce, that could be a guillotine, that could be all types of problems. So Gaethje's positions, his opportunities dwindle down because of his clear disadvantage in terms of jiu-jitsu, where Charles doesn't really have that. He still has the ability to win in every position. And you go, well, he doesn't have a chance to win in a striking battle with Justin Gaethje. I disagree. I think I would give the edge to Gaethje because of the power that Gaethje has. And Gaethje, like I said, man, he sets it up. But the interesting thing to me in this fight, how does Gaethje set up the hands if the leg kicks are not problematic for his opponent? When you look at even the Dustin Poirier fight, Gaethje lost that fight. Gaethje got TKO'd in that fight against Dustin, but he severely damaged Dustin's legs. Severely. When you look at his fight against Khabib, he was hitting those legs. He hit him with a couple nasty low kicks. Khabib just fucking he's a cardio king and was able to just basically chase Gaethje the entire fight until he got a takedown. but he was putting some damage on those legs. When you look at his fight with Michael Chandler, when you look at his fight with Tony Ferguson, especially those two, he set up the shots. He set up other shots by coming down on that leg, by stand up, especially the Ferguson fight, where they're heavy on their front leg and he just times it perfectly. As soon as they step in, bow, and it prevents them from doing it. Now it's in their head. Now they're not putting as much heavy pressure in the front leg, and now Gaethje's setting up the hands. What happens when you have a traditional Muay Thai fighter who is very, very light on that front leg, who fights standing up, heavy on the back leg, that front leg's constantly up and down, that front leg's coming at your midsection on teep kicks, coming to the front of your face for front kicks? How do you deal with that? Justin Gaethje, I'm trying to think back, don't think he's ever fought a Muay Thai-based guy. I don't know how many Muay Thai-based guys are in the camp. If he's training with Kamaru Usman in them, Kamaru Usman can't replicate it. I'm sure they have guys. It's a big gym. Like, I'm sure they have guys that can replicate it. But how does he deal with it in the fight? That's something I'm very interested to see, because Gaethje's going to throw leg kicks. He can't not. That's his thing. That's one of his best weapons. I said he has a really nasty right hand. He can hit you with all types of. We saw the uppercut. His straight right's good. His overhand right is good. His right hook is good. All that's good. He has a really nasty check hook as well. But one of his best weapons, his setup weapon, the biggest setup weapon he has, is those low calf kicks. What happens against Oliveira, who's very front on that front leg? If he throws a few and Oliveira is able to get his leg up and he's not getting him while he's putting damage on it, and then if he's trying to close distance or he's trying to really time when Oliveira steps forward, can Charles capitalize with his left hook, with his straight rights? The elbows that Oliveira can throw, stuff up the middle, a lot of stuff up the middle and center line for Charles Oliveira is going to be very crucial that Gaethje gets his head off the center line, as it is for Oliveira. But for Oliveira, I think it's going to be crucial to him to gauge distance. Gauge distance. Don't sit heavy on that front leg. Don't commit too hard to certain shots. Don't stay in the pocket. For him, it's about movement, right? Get out, create those angles, get out of position from Justin Gaethje. Where Gaethje, it's more so get the head off the center line. So I don't think that Gaethje has a huge advantage in the striking department. I'll give him the slight edge in terms of striking because of that power. But Charles Oliveira knocked out Michael Chandler, And I know I hate MMA math, and I don't want to be, well, he knocked out Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje didn't, therefore he's a better striker than Justin Gaethje. No, it's different. But Charles Oliveira has shown that he can hurt people, man. He wobbled Dustin Poirier in that fight. I hate that they didn't talk about it. Like, Joe Rogan did kind of mention it. He's like, oh, Dustin's hurt. But he hurt Dustin. Like, there's a moment in the first round. Dustin hurt him. Like, Dustin won that first round. He hurt Charles. But there was a moment in that first round where Dustin got a little chicken dance. He chicken danced a little bit where it was like, oh, shit. And there was a moment where Poirier was pouring it on. He backed him up in the fence, hit him with a nasty 1-2, out of southpaw position. And that's the other thing, is I hadn't seen Charles really, really struggle too much in the striking department like he did against Poirier. And I think it was a southpaw stance that really messed with him a little bit, which Justin Gaethje doesn't fight out of southpaw. But in that fight, Poirier put the pressure on him. He started lining him up. He started landing clean shots. And it was like, uh-oh. And in that moment, he got a little tired. Oliveira dug into his body again and then hit him with his own shot. I forget exactly what shot it was. I think it was a right hook. I could be wrong. I think it was a right hand, though. He hit him with a shot, and Poirier got a little wobbly and then backed up and kind of reset, did the old Poirier check clock, pull shorts up thing. But in that moment, Joe Rogan did say, like, oh, he got Dustin, or I think maybe it was Anik that was like a big shot from Oliveira, but they didn't realize like how hurt Dustin was in that moment. Like, Dustin got wobbled, and Charles Oliveira has that chance now, man. But he's not the same scrawny kid at 145 anymore. He's put on the weight, he's carried good muscle, and he's more effective in his shots. When you go back and watch his fights at 145 when he was a quitter, and I don't want to say quitter, maybe he was, maybe he had to overcome that, maybe he can admit that he used to be like that. But go back and watch those fights when Charles would hit guys. It wasn't the same now. Now when Charles hits people, it's like, oh shit, this guy's got some pop now. Even the shots to the midsection area, his body shots, whether it's the knees or straight shots to the body, the teep kicks, it's like, yo, he's got some power behind him now at this age, with this frame, at this weight class. It's gonna be a great fight. Nervous is all shit. I'm nervous for Rose. I'm nervous for Charles. More nervous for Charles because if Rose loses, it's gonna suck. Like, I'm nervous for her losing. Like I said, she's my favorite female fighter. But if she loses, I don't think she's going to get hurt. I don't think, I don't see any which way that she can get knocked out. So if she loses, it's a decision win. Carla just kind of, maybe Carla gets in a rear naked or something. But if it's a win for Carla, I think it's a decision win where she just has too much control time, where Rose isn't able to get into a rhythm on the feet. So I'm not too worried about Rose in that sense. I am worried about her losing, but not being hurt. Where Charles, I'm like, if Charles loses this fight, it's because Gaethje's lined him up. Gaethje either knocked him out or did what he did to Ferguson. And that I'm worried about for Charles, because that's my dude, man. I don't want to see Charles lose. So I'm going for Charles, going for Rose. I'm going for Tony Ferguson. I don't think I said that. I'm going for Ferguson, but I do think Chandler's going to win that fight. But I am really rooting for Tony, man. He's an OG. He's a dude. But a little bit of a long podcast. I told you it was going to be a deep dive. If you're not an MMA head, if you're not a UFC fan, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for this one. We'll be back on Monday to recap the fight, but we'll start talking about the playoffs. NBA playoffs continue tonight. This is the Celtics Bucks, which is a huge game, and the Warriors Grizzlies, which are huge. Both series are tied 1-1. So really looking forward for tonight. I'll be watching those. I'll watch those and make sure that I can be back with you with those games and game 3 of the other 2 series. And I'll be able to talk about that on Monday while I quickly recap what happened tomorrow in UFC 274. So thank you guys as always. I'll see you on Monday. Enjoy the weekend. Don't miss this pay-per-view. All right, y'all be safe. Peace. Oh, happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day. I'll be able to say it on Monday too. But happy Mother's Day to all the mothers. My mother's watching. Happy Mother's Day. I love you. I don't want to talk too much about Mother's Day. I'll probably cry. All right. You guys be easy. Peace.